In a far corner of the galaxy, a large space station floated near a swirling blue planet. This station was built to welcome beings from many different worlds. Today, it was alive with excitement and quiet anticipation as representatives from countless civilizations gathered to share ideas and build a better future. Princess Alira, the calm and wise leader of her people, walked slowly through a long, softly lit corridor. Her silver hair shimmered in the gentle glow of the station's lights, and her deep eyes held the quiet strength of centuries of wisdom. Alira was known for her unshakable calm and careful thought. Every step she took was measured and graceful, a perfect example of her people's peaceful nature. At the same time, in another part of the station, Lieutenant Marcus Hale, a soldier from Earth, made his way toward the grand meeting hall. Marcus was tall and strong, with kind eyes that showed his genuine care for others. Unlike many soldiers who wore stern expressions, Marcus's smile was honest and warm. He carried the pride of his people with him, as well as the hope of showing that humans could be brave yet caring. The grand hall was filled with a soft hum of conversations in many different voices. Bright lights, simple decorations, and a calm melody set a welcoming atmosphere. When Princess Alira entered, the room fell quiet. Every being in the hall sensed her quiet power and noble presence. Marcus's heart beat a little faster as he saw her. He had heard many stories about her kind and steady leadership, and now he was face to face with the legend. The ceremony began with a series of simple, respectful greetings. Alira and Marcus exchanged a brief nod and a smile. In that moment, each recognized something unique in the other. Alira, who was always in control of her emotions, felt a small but unexpected flutter in her heart. Marcus, with his straightforward manner, exuded an honesty that was both rare and refreshing. Throughout the ceremony, the princess listened carefully as different speakers talked about peace and cooperation. But her thoughts kept drifting back to Marcus's gentle smile and earnest eyes. She wondered how one human soldier could carry such a mix of strength and kindness. Meanwhile, Marcus felt a growing respect for the calm dignity of the princess, whose presence was as steady as the stars. When the meeting came to an end, the crowd began to disperse, yet the memory of that first encounter lingered. In that brief meeting, a quiet spark had been lit between the calm alien princess and the brave human soldier, a spark that promised to grow as both their worlds continued to meet and learn from one another. Little did they know that this simple encounter would be the first step in a journey that would change their lives and the fate of their worlds forever. The grand hall of the space station was still buzzing with quiet conversations as Princess Alira and Lieutenant Marcus Hale stepped aside from the main gathering. The official meeting had ended, but smaller discussions continued among diplomats, scholars, and military representatives from different worlds. Alira, as always, held herself with grace and calmness. Her people, the Sylvani, were known for their patience and wisdom. They believed that words held great power and should be chosen carefully. In contrast, humans were direct and often spoke their minds without hesitation. Marcus, standing next to her, was observing the different alien delegates with curiosity. He had always been fascinated by new cultures, and this summit was a perfect opportunity to learn. However, what truly intrigued him was the princess herself. There was something about her steady presence that made him want to understand her better. "You must be used to these kinds of meetings," Marcus said with a friendly smile. Alira turned to him, her expression unreadable. "Yes. Diplomacy is a responsibility I have carried for many years." Her voice was smooth, almost musical, but there was something distant about it. Marcus sensed that she was not used to casual conversations. He decided to push a little. "I guess humans do things differently," he said, glancing around. "We talk too much, laugh too loud, and don't always follow the rules of polite diplomacy." Alira raised a delicate eyebrow. "Perhaps, but that is not always a weakness." Marcus was surprised. Most aliens saw humans as reckless, unpredictable creatures. But Alira did not seem to judge them the same way. He chuckled. "That's a rare thing to hear from someone in your position. Most of the time, we're called impulsive or too emotional. Elira hesitated for a moment. Then, to Marcus's surprise, a small smile touched her lips. Emotions are not always a burden, she admitted. I have seen how they drive humans to do impossible things. Marcus tilted his head. That almost sounds like a compliment. Elira's face remained calm, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes, an emotion she herself did not fully understand. Was she amused? Flustered? The thought caught her off guard. She had always been in control of herself, yet this human, with his warm smile and easy confidence, made her feel something unfamiliar. Before she could respond, a sharp chime echoed through the hall. A messenger approached her, whispering urgent words. Elira's expression changed. There is an issue in the diplomatic chambers, she said, her tone serious again. I must go. I'll come with you, Marcus offered. You might need backup. Elira hesitated. Accepting help was not something she did often. But as she looked at the human soldier standing beside her, she realized she did not entirely mind. Without another word, she nodded. Together, they walked toward the unknown challenge ahead, unaware that their bond had already begun to shift in ways neither of them had expected. Princess Elira walked swiftly through the corridors of the space station, her expression calm but focused. The urgent message from her advisors had been brief. There was a disturbance in the diplomatic chambers. She did not yet know what had happened, but she could not afford to ignore it. Beside her, Lieutenant Marcus Hale kept pace, his sharp eyes scanning their surroundings. Unlike Elira, whose movements were graceful and measured, Marcus moved with a quiet readiness, always prepared for trouble. His instincts told him that something was wrong. As they approached the chamber, two Sylvani guards stepped forward and bowed slightly to Elira. Your Highness, there has been an intrusion, one of them reported. Elira's expression did not change. What kind of intrusion? The guard hesitated. Unknown figures entered the restricted section. They avoided security and left behind a device. We do not yet know its purpose. Marcus frowned. A device. Could it be a bomb? The guard shook his head. We detected no explosives, but we are still analyzing it. Elira turned to Marcus, her eyes thoughtful. Humans have experience with sabotage, do they not? Marcus smirked. That's a nice way of saying we've dealt with a lot of dirty tricks. Let me take a look. Elira hesitated for a brief moment. She was used to handling matters with careful diplomacy, but Marcus's direct approach was different. And yet, she found herself trusting him. She gave a small nod. Very well. Inside the chamber, a small silver device sat on the floor, pulsing with soft blue lights. Several Sylvani technicians stood around it, scanning and taking notes, but no one had dared to touch it. Marcus crouched down and studied the device. He had seen similar technology before, alien designs that could scramble communications, disable defenses, or worse. He carefully examined the edges, then let out a low whistle. This isn't a bomb, he said, standing up. It's a disruptor. If it activates, it could shut down security systems, maybe even create a temporary blackout on the station. Elira's expression remained composed, but her fingers tightened slightly. Who would do this? Marcus exhaled sharply. Someone who wants chaos. Maybe someone who doesn't want this alliance to happen. Before anyone could say more, the device let out a sudden, high-pitched sound. The blue lights pulsed faster. Marcus reacted instantly. We need to shut this down. Now. One of the technicians tried to input a command, but the device beeped angrily and locked up. Elira turned to Marcus, sensing the urgency. Can you stop it? She asked. Marcus cracked his knuckles. I can try. As he worked quickly, Elira watched him closely. There was something about his confidence, his fearless way of facing the unknown, that made her heart race in a way she could not understand. For the first time in her life, Princess Elira felt truly flustered. Marcus crouched beside the glowing disruptor, his hands moving quickly over its surface. The soft blue lights had turned an alarming red, pulsing faster and faster. The Sylvani technicians looked nervous, whispering among themselves. Lyra stood still, watching the human soldier with sharp eyes. "Whatever you're going to do," she said calmly, "do it fast." Marcus smirked. "No pressure, huh?" He didn't waste another second. Pulling a small multi-tool from his belt, he started prying open a side panel of the device. Inside, complex circuits glowed faintly. It was alien tech, but Marcus had seen enough disruptors to understand the basics. He just needed to find the power source and disable it before it sent out an EMP blast. "Do you know what you're doing?" Lyra asked, stepping closer. Marcus shot her a quick glance. "Mostly." Her calm mask almost slipped. "Mostly." "Relax, princess. Humans are good at improvising." He grinned as he carefully disconnected a glowing wire. The disruptor beeped loudly, making everyone in the room tense. Lyra's heart raced, not from fear of the device, but from something else entirely. Marcus was so confident, so unshaken. His hands moved with practiced ease, his sharp blue eyes locked onto his work. She was used to calm and disciplined leaders, to scholars who weighed every decision carefully. But this human, he was different. He acted without hesitation, trusted his instincts, and faced the unknown with a boldness that unsettled her. Another beep, then silence. Marcus leaned back and let out a breath. Got it. The red lights on the device faded, turning off completely. The technicians rushed forward, scanning the disruptor. One of them looked up at Lyra. "It's inactive now, Your Highness." Lyra exhaled softly. "Well done, Lieutenant." Marcus stood up, wiping his hands on his uniform. "Not bad for a human, huh?" Lyra raised an elegant eyebrow. "I never said humans were incapable." Marcus chuckled. "No, but I get the feeling you don't meet many like me." For the first time, Lyra wasn't sure how to respond. He was right. She had never met someone like him. Before she could think of a reply, an advisor entered the chamber. "Your Highness, the Council is requesting an emergency meeting to discuss this incident." Lyra gave a small nod. "I will be there shortly." The advisor left, and Lyra turned back to Marcus. She hesitated, then said, "You should come with me." Marcus blinked. "Me? I thought politics wasn't my thing." "It isn't," Lyra admitted, "but your insight may be valuable." Marcus smiled, sensing that wasn't the only reason. "All right, Princess. Lead the way." As they walked side by side, Lyra felt something unfamiliar stir in her heart. A spark had been lit, one that she was not yet ready to name. Princess Lyra walked through the long, shining corridor of the space station, Marcus Hale keeping pace beside her. The weight of the recent sabotage attempt still lingered in the air. The emergency council meeting was about to begin, and every step she took felt heavier than usual. Marcus glanced at her. "So, what are the chances that this meeting turns into a blame game?" Lyra sighed. "High. Many will want to point fingers rather than find solutions." Marcus smirked. "Sounds like politicians are the same everywhere." Lyra gave him a sidelong glance. "And yet you agreed to come." "I like to keep an eye on things," he said. "Besides, I have a feeling you could use someone who doesn't just talk in circles." Lyra didn't respond, but deep inside, she knew he was right. His directness was something she had never encountered in the controlled, measured world of diplomacy. It was refreshing. As they entered the council chamber, a large room filled with high-ranking officials and representatives, the air was thick with tension. The moment Lyra stepped in, all voices hushed. She took her seat at the center, while Marcus stood behind her, arms crossed, watching everything carefully. An elder Sylvani diplomat stood. "This attack was meant to disrupt our unity. We must act swiftly." Another alien delegate, a member of a reptilian race, narrowed his eyes. "And who benefits from such chaos? The humans arrived only recently. Perhaps this was their doing." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Seriously, my people sent me here to protect this summit, not to mess it up." We're not that stupid. The room murmured at his bold words. Elira suppressed a smile. An older ambassador frowned, then explained why it was a human soldier who deactivated the device, while our experts hesitated. Marcus leaned forward. Because I acted. While your experts were still debating, I got it done. Elira finally spoke, her voice calm but firm. Lieutenant Hale risked himself to neutralize the device. I trust him, and I do not believe humans are responsible. The room fell silent. Elira's word carried great weight. Marcus, who had been bracing for more accusations, glanced at her. Trust, that was not something she would say lightly. The discussion continued, but Elira noticed something odd. A few delegates exchanged looks, as if they knew more than they were saying. Someone here knew exactly who had planted the device. Marcus leaned down and whispered, "Some of them are hiding something." Elira's eyes darkened. I know. For the first time, she and Marcus were not just allies by chance. They were united by purpose. Someone was working against them, and they would find out who. As the meeting ended, Marcus turned to Elira with a smirk. Well, that was fun. Elira, to her own surprise, almost laughed. Almost. Something was changing between them, and neither of them could ignore it anymore. Princess Elira sat alone in her private chamber, the glow of the space station's artificial lights casting soft shadows across the polished walls. The council meeting had ended hours ago, yet her mind remained restless. The accusations, the whispers, the hidden glances, it was clear that someone within the alliance did not want peace. And then there was Marcus. She exhaled, pressing her fingertips together. The human soldier had defended himself with an ease that unsettled her. He was bold, unafraid to challenge authority, and yet he had earned her trust. That was dangerous. Trust was not something she gave easily. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," she said. The door slid open, and Marcus Hale stepped in. "Hope I'm not interrupting any deep space princess thoughts," he said with a smirk. Elira sighed. "Lieutenant, do you always speak so freely?" "Only when it gets a reaction," he admitted, walking closer. His gaze softened as he studied her. "You seem tense." She straightened. "I do not let emotions cloud my judgment." Marcus chuckled. "That's a fancy way of saying you're overthinking things." Elira frowned. "And you? Do you not think before you act?" He shrugged. "I do, but I also trust my instincts. They tell me that someone on that council is working against you." She met his eyes. "I felt it too." Marcus nodded, leaning against the wall. "Then we need to stop them before they try something worse." For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Elira studied him, the human who had somehow unsettled her carefully built walls. His confidence was unlike anything she had encountered. His presence made her feel different. "You are reckless," she finally said. Marcus grinned. "And you're overcautious." She sighed. "Perhaps, but recklessness can lead to mistakes, and caution can lead to inaction," he countered. Elira found herself staring at him, uncertain how he had managed to turn the conversation into something so personal. She was a princess, trained in diplomacy, yet Marcus Hale, this human soldier, was challenging her in ways no one else ever had. "Why are you really here, Marcus?" she asked. He tilted his head. "Honestly, at first it was duty. Now, I think I just don't want to see you fail." Elira's heart skipped a beat, though she showed no outward reaction. "You are an unusual human," she murmured. Marcus chuckled. "And you are an unusual princess." Another silence fell between them, but this time it was not uncomfortable. It was charged with something neither of them could quite name. Finally, Elira stood. "We will find those responsible for the sabotage. Together." Marcus nodded. "Sounds like a plan." As he turned to leave, Elira realized something. Her calm, logical mind had always ruled her decisions. But now, for the first time, a human soldier had made her feel something new. and it terrified her. The space station's lower levels were usually quiet, just long, empty corridors and the faint hum of machinery. But tonight, the air was tense. Marcus and Elira walked side by side, their steps echoing off the metal walls. Behind them followed a small team of trusted Sylvani guards and human technicians, all focused and alert. The recent sabotage attempt had made one thing clear. Their alliance was fragile, and someone wanted it shattered. "Why down here?" Marcus asked, scanning their surroundings. Elira's voice was steady. The disruptor's origin point was traced to this section. Whoever planted it likely used these lower levels to avoid detection. Marcus nodded, his hand hovering near his holstered weapon. "If they're still down here, we'll find them." Elira glanced at him. His confidence was almost unsettling, almost. She'd grown used to his human nature by now. He acted before overthinking, trusted his instincts over cautious deliberation. It was different from how she had always approached problems, and it challenged her in ways she hadn't expected. "Stay close," she said. Marcus smirked. "Don't worry. I'm not going anywhere." They rounded a corner and entered a large storage bay. The room was dimly lit, stacked high with crates and equipment. Marcus raised a hand, signaling the group to stop. He motioned silently, and the team fanned out, carefully scanning every shadow. Elira watched him work. His movements were efficient, his commands clear. For all his casual remarks and easy confidence, Marcus was undeniably skilled. It was one of the reasons she'd come to trust him so quickly. Suddenly, a faint noise, a shuffle, came from behind a row of crates. Marcus pointed toward it, and two guards moved in silently. The team closed in, ready for anything. A figure emerged, a tall alien wearing dark, nondescript clothing. He froze at the sight of the group. "Hold it." Marcus barked, his weapon drawn. The alien's eyes darted around, searching for an escape. "I don't know what you think," he began, but his voice faltered as Elira stepped forward. "Who are you?" she asked calmly, her piercing gaze locked on him. The alien hesitated, then sighed. "I'm just a technician. I don't know anything about." Marcus interrupted, his tone sharp. "Don't lie. We know the disruptor came from here. Tell us who you're working for." The alien's eyes flickered nervously. I can't. They'll." Elira's voice was steady, but firm. "If you speak now, we may protect you. If you do not, you risk the wrath of those who do not value your life." The alien looked from Marcus to Elira, sweat beading on his brow. Finally, he whispered, "I was told to place the disruptor. I didn't know what it would do. I was just following orders." "Whose orders?" Marcus pressed. The alien swallowed hard, one of the council delegates. Elira's calm exterior remained, but inside, she felt the weight of this revelation. The conspiracy was deeper than she had imagined, and the alliance she had worked so hard to maintain was in more danger than ever. Marcus holstered his weapon, giving Elira a meaningful glance. "Looks like we have our lead." For the first time since this crisis began, Elira felt something close to hope. They weren't just reacting anymore. They were taking the fight to the shadows that threatened them. Together, she and Marcus would uncover the truth and defend the fragile unity of their people. The council chambers were silent as Princess Elira stood at the center, her presence commanding the attention of every delegate. She had spent the past hours reviewing the evidence her team and Marcus had gathered. Now she faced a room filled with the most influential leaders from across the galaxy. "Honored delegates," Elira began, her calm voice cutting through the tense atmosphere. "We have uncovered the source of the sabotage." All eyes were on her. Even Marcus, standing at the edge of the chamber, felt the weight of her words. He had never seen Elira this composed yet so determined. "There are those among us," Elira continued, "who would prefer chaos to unity. We have identified individuals who conspired to plant a device intended to disrupt our summit and destroy our trust in one another." Gasps and murmurs spread across the chamber. One of the older delegates, a tall figure with sharp features, rose to his feet. "These are serious accusations, Princess. Surely you have proof." Lyra nodded. "We do. Lieutenant Hale and I personally oversaw the investigation. We have both physical evidence and testimony." She gestured toward Marcus, who stepped forward and projected a hologram showing the device, security footage, and the technician's recorded confession. As the images played, the room grew more restless. A few delegates exchanged uneasy glances. When the hologram faded, Lyra spoke again. "We know who is responsible. It is up to this council to decide their fate. But let me make one thing clear. Our unity must not be shaken. If we allow fear and mistrust to rule us, we hand victory to those who seek to divide us." The room fell into a heavy silence. Then the elder delegate spoke again, his voice softer now. "What do you propose, Your Highness?" Lyra paused, her eyes scanning the room. "We must reaffirm our commitment to this alliance. We must show that no matter the obstacles, we will not turn against one another. And we must hold those who seek to harm us accountable, regardless of their rank or influence." Marcus watched as Lyra stood tall, her voice unwavering. This wasn't just a political speech. It was a declaration of strength and resilience. He had seen leaders give orders in the field, but this was something else. She was inspiring not through fear, but through resolve. When she finished, a quiet stillness hung in the air. Then, one by one, delegates began to nod. They saw in her the leader they needed, someone who would face the dark truths of their fragile alliance and bring them into the light. As the council prepared to take action, Lyra turned to Marcus and gave a small private smile. It was a silent acknowledgement of his help, his unwavering support. For the first time, Lyra truly believed that together, human and Sylvani, they could face any challenge and build a stronger future. The council had made its decision. The individuals responsible for the sabotage were to be removed from their positions and sent back to their home planets for trial. It was not an easy choice, but it was necessary to preserve the fragile trust that remained among the various delegations. Princess Lyra walked through the station's observation deck, her mind heavy with thoughts of what lay ahead. The glass windows stretched wide, revealing the starry expanse of space. From this vantage point, she could see the planet below, its surface glowing faintly with the lights of countless cities. Marcus approached, his boots softly tapping against the metal floor. "So we made it through the hard part," he said, leaning against the railing beside her. Lyra turned her head slightly. "Perhaps, but this is only the beginning." "Beginning of what?" he asked, genuinely curious. She gestured toward the planet. "Of a true alliance. Not one held together by fear of war or desperation, but by understanding and respect." Marcus nodded. "Sounds great in theory, but you know as well as I do, not everyone's on board. Some of them still see humans as, well, as reckless and unpredictable." Lyra allowed a small smile. "And some see the Sylvani as overly cautious and slow to act." "Fair point." She turned to face him fully. "But you and I, Marcus, we've proven that those differences can become strengths. Your determination, your instinct, it complements my people's careful planning. Together, we've shown that we are more than our stereotypes." Marcus grinned. "Look at you, giving compliments. I might get used to this." Lyra ignored his teasing, but the corner of her mouth lifted slightly. "If we continue to work together, we can inspire others to do the same. To look beyond their assumptions. That is the only way this alliance will survive." Marcus grew serious. "You really believe that?" "I do," she said simply, "because I've seen it happen." They stood in silence for a moment, gazing out at the stars. Despite the many challenges they faced, there was a sense of quiet hope between them. They were two individuals from very different worlds, and yet they had found a way to trust and rely on each other. Finally, Marcus broke the silence. "You know, you're not so bad for an overly cautious princess." Lyra gave him a sidelong look. and you are not so reckless as you like to pretend." Their eyes met, and in that unspoken moment, they understood that their partnership was not just about solving crises or uncovering conspiracies. It was about building something stronger, an alliance, a friendship, maybe even something more. As the stars glittered outside the station, Alara knew that the real work was only beginning. But for the first time, she felt ready. Together, she and Marcus would lead the way into a future that held promise, even in the face of uncertainty. The summit had officially ended, and the delegates from all over the galaxy were preparing to return to their homeworlds. The space station's bustling halls grew quieter as ships departed one by one, leaving behind only a handful of staff and a few representatives still tying up loose ends. Princess Alara stood by the grand window in her private quarters, looking out at the vast stretch of stars. The Council's decisions had been implemented, and those who had conspired to sabotage the alliance were no longer a threat. Still, Alara felt the weight of the road ahead. It was one thing to expose a danger and restore a fragile trust. It was another to maintain and nurture that trust as the years went on. A soft knock at her door broke her thoughts. "Come in," she said. Marcus Hale stepped inside, his expression lighter than usual. "Figured I'd stop by before I head back to Earth." Alara turned to him. "You've already been reassigned." "Yeah," Marcus replied. "My superiors were thrilled to hear how things turned out. I guess they think I've got some kind of diplomatic talent now." He grinned, "Not sure how I feel about that." Alara allowed herself a faint smile. "You did more than your duty, Lieutenant. Without your help, this summit would have ended in disaster." Marcus shrugged, his grin softening. "I just did what seemed right. You're the one who held everyone together." For a moment, they simply looked at each other. In the silence, the events of the past days seemed to stretch between them. The danger they faced, the truths they uncovered, the fragile connection they had built. "I'll admit," Marcus said, breaking the silence, "I didn't expect this kind of mission when I signed up. I thought I'd be dealing with drills and orders, not, well, whatever this was." Alara raised an eyebrow. "Disappointed?" "Not at all," he replied. "Turns out, working with you wasn't so bad." She tilted her head. "That almost sounds like a compliment." Marcus chuckled. "Take it however you want, Princess." There was a pause before Alara spoke again. "Will you be returning for future summits?" Marcus hesitated. "Maybe. But even if I don't, I think this place, and you, have left an impression." For the first time in days, Alara felt a lightness in her chest, a feeling she couldn't quite name. She had spent her life building alliances, fostering unity, and guarding her emotions. Yet this human, with his straightforward nature and reckless charm, had managed to shift something inside her. She took a step closer. "The Alliance will remember you, Marcus. I will remember you." Marcus nodded, a small smile on his lips. "And I'll remember you too, Your Highness." As he turned to leave, Alara watched him go. The summit had ended, but she knew this was not the end of their story. It was only the beginning of something larger, something that, in the vast expanse of space, just might make all the difference.